Welcome to the Uncensored Society podcast, where guests share their insights, experiences, and tactics to help you accelerate your business. So building, scaling, and monetizing your business is made easier. And now, your host, Kay Suthar.
Oh my goodness, guys, I have an amazing guest for us today. His name is Brandon Neely, an entrepreneur and a profit first and bank on yourself professional. Him and his wife, Amanda Neely, founded and managed Overflow Coffee Bar, L3C, from 2008 through 2018. Now they share their experiential knowledge through podcasting and through developing personalized financial strategies, not only for individuals and couples, but they also help with profitable strategies for big businesses as well. Please welcome the amazing Brandon Neely.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kay. This is going to be fun.
This is going to be fun. Oh my goodness. So you have just got so much knowledge and so much experience, right? When I was speaking with you, off camera a few days ago when we had a pre-screening, I was like, oh my goodness, like the amount of golden nuggets were just coming out of you was just constant. And I knew I had to have you for the show. So thank you for coming on board.
Thanks. Hey, I'm glad I said something important or helpful.
Maybe just one or two things, right? I would love to go a lot more deeper in this episode because you've got so much value to share with everybody. But before we get into the whole nitty gritty, I do want to ask you, what was your journey like? What were you doing before you came into this kind of business?
Yeah, I mean, my journey is all over the place. Like seriously, when I was a kid, grew up in New Orleans, Louisiana, and that was a lot of fun and crazy. And then I joined the Marine Corps. Oh, so wow. I was in the Marine Corps, served there for about 4 years, and decided that I'm not very good at following orders as well. So 4 years was the extent of it. Then I was like, oh, this is what do I do now? And I ended up in the music industry of all things. Wow. So I ended up working with some high celebrities, big celebrities, and realized that music kind of is amazing, but there's a lot of craziness that happens.
Oh, goodness. Right. Okay. So you was in the music industry working with no celebrities. Are you allowed to name drop? I have to ask.
I'm not going to name drop because then I have, maybe I'll say a few. There's a couple industrial bands like Ministry, Backstreet Boys, some R&B artists. And, I just saw everything. I've talked to Michael Jackson on the phone back in the day, all kinds of stuff. But with all of that, I realized that a lot of the things that happen in the music industry that we hear about, on TMZ or whatever, a lot of it's true, like a lot of craziness. And I'm like, I need to get out of this because this is like horrible. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, and got out of that. And then moved from that into technology because I'm like, I need to get a real job or something. So I was in technology, did that for a while, and then met my wife, had a great idea of starting a business, which I tell people, if you can do anything else, do that. But, decided to go forward that was just after 2008, probably the worst time to start a business. But we did it and learned a lot of what not to do and some things of what to do. And now we're in the financial services industry of all places.
Wow. Okay. So it has been a wild journey for you.
Yeah. Oh man, I have so many stories. I don't run into the celebrities like I did before in this industry, and I did not take pictures, or it was kind of before this whole social media thing kicked off. So if you go and you scroll through my Facebook, you might see some old images, when you actually took pictures of some people and different things.
Oh, wow. Okay. We will have to definitely check that out and see which celebrities you've been rubbing shoulders with in the past, for sure. But coming away from that, the financial services is what you deal with right now. This is how you help your clients. So tell us a little bit more about how you actually help your clients in regards to the financial services.
Yeah, I don't just think about like putting your money in the market, right? I really want to think about cash flow from, if people are younger, and especially in America, we don't want to lock it up into things that we can't access till we're 59 and a half, right? Or business owners really making sure that you are paying yourself first, right? So that is what happens in business oftentimes is you have to pay your staff, you have to pay your vendors, you have to do all of that. But the business owner is usually last to get paid.
That's right.
Last to even receive a profit. And profit first is a way of saying, well, let's flip that. Let's make sure profit comes first, build the business around it. So that way you run a successful, healthy business, not like what Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First, says is a cash-eating monster. We don't want to create that. We want to create a business that loves us and we love and loves us back, right?
Yeah. Now, I love that fact that you mentioned, I guess, one of the most popular things that business owners do, especially when they're first getting started, and that's paying themselves last, right?
Yep.
So I hear this all the time because I feel like business owners, they need to pay their bills, they need to pay their staff, they need to pay everything else, and what they just take with whatever is left, I guess.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that mindset, that concept, right? And how you can break away from that, making sure that you are still paying your bills.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you think about the necessity of things, right? Oftentimes what we used to find as, a nice thing to have became necessary, right? Like the iPhone, right? Different things, which comes at a cost, right? All the time. Yeah. And so what the author of Profit First says is like make smaller plates, right? And it's all percentage based. So you might not start with, what they call TAPs, target allocation percentages. Right. You might start lower than what is the goal, right? And it's all percentage based. So, a good standard is 50% comes to owner's pay, right? Of whatever comes into the business. Right. But you might not be there. You might be at 20% or 10%, right? And what you want to do is start developing those muscles to get to that place and be able to build the metrics, right? So then every quarter we do money meetings and we'll adjust the percentages, right? We'll say, okay, I need to lower my OPEX, which is the operation expense, because I don't know, you're a business owner.
Yes.
And do you ever have that shiny object thing where you bought something and they put you on reoccurring and you forget about it?
Yes, you do. Even with the gym subscription, right? People do it all the time.
So we do that all the time, and you forget, and people want you to forget, right? So then what you need to do is what they call an expense challenge, and you might adjust those percentages just by cutting certain things. Now, at the same time, you don't want to just cut, right? You don't want to shrink your way to wealth. Some is, dude, you know what you need to do? You need to get out and hustle. You need to go out and make some sales, right? And so you want to increase revenue while keeping as much for yourself. And there's a kind of a balancing act between the two things.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. And so, you must come across a lot of people, especially in the beginning stages, that are, I guess, not really building their business to wealth. And so they get caught into old habits. So would you be able to describe and tell us a little bit about what other kind of pitfalls a lot of business owners just fall into?
oh, using that nice old credit card, right? They're used to doing this, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to just do this and this, and they don't realize the percentage rates on a card, right? 20%, 15%, 10%, whatever it is. And what I've told people is we're all in the banking business. No matter what you sell, we're in the banking business. I mean, you think about it, processing fees for a membership site, right? Goes straight out. And then if you want to have your thing listed on Apple, right? Then Apple takes a big chunk just from the beginning, right? And they're in the banking business and in general. They're just like, how do we take control or think through that? What we want to do is look at the bigger picture and look at percentages. How do I understand cash flow to create wealth, while at the same time, maybe as you're creating your asset and your skill, right? How do you amplify that? Is a big thing. Most people, you have to shrink things and amplify your strengths.
Okay, now you mentioned a couple of times now that you've got to be aware of your numbers. And I know a lot of business owners that hate numbers. They don't like spreadsheets. They don't like data, right? They just want to do what they love to do, and that's coach in whatever particular niche they're in, right?
Yep.
So how do you get over or try to coach and explain that as a business owner, we've got to start liking our numbers?
I think that's the problem in our culture in general. We don't like numbers. And the idea is, and I have a method we think about. The world wants to keep us in chaos, confusing, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful, right? Confusing, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful. Does that feel like the world? I mean, I don't care. You're on the other side of the pond, right? Probably feel the same, right? Yeah. And so then we say, well, I really want to make money, but I don't like this. Well, you got to keep an eye on the metrics, right? Even if you aren't a business owner, you might have a family household. That's technically a business. Money's coming in and money's going out. The other thing is everybody has a plan for your money, right? No matter if you're like, I don't know, whatever you're doing. I mean, you watch the TV for 5 seconds. Somebody has a plan for your money. So if you don't have a plan and strategy, someone will make it for you. So if someone is saying, I don't know, well, get around people that you can learn from, because numbers are one of the most important things you can be measuring and tracking to be able to see if you're successful. Otherwise, why are you in business?
Right. And so no matter how much you try and fight it, dislike it, if you want to be in business, then we got to get used to loving numbers, tracking it, analytics, data, all of that good stuff.
I mean, I might not have the person, like you might not be the person that puts it all in, right? I know how to read a P&L statement and all of that. But I'm not the one that'll put all of that stuff in. I have a team. Like my wife is really good at that stuff. So
right, but this is the thing, right? When it comes to finances, a lot of people, I guess, you need to find someone that you can trust that will put the data in correctly, right? While I guess you deal with other things. Now you've got your wife, which is perfectly fine. But what if someone, if they're looking for someone else to hire out to do that, right? That is very tricky.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing, and this is the problem in any business, right? You have to realize you are not a teenage business, right? You're a baby business. And in the baby years, you got to take care of all the crap, right? Unfortunately, and learn it, right? At least have an idea before you hire a nanny, right? And I think that's the same idea here. And that's why we created the STILL method, which is a method that we've thought about a lot. Is not everybody is about numbers, right? Nobody will keep kicking the can and say, well, I'll deal with that later. But if you have a set time with a set group of people, maybe it'll make it a little easier to be able to amplify and do the right things, right? Because oftentimes we think we're alone. Right? Everybody, like in this world, we think we're all, no one's ever experienced this or that. More than likely, other people have. And so to be around a community that are doing what we call the STILL method together, that helps them to not feel alone, maybe ask some questions, and figure out, reverse engineer their money system.
Okay, so you've mentioned this twice now. In building a community, having the right people around you, you mentioned about building a community.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a new business, where do you even start? How do you find the right people to be around?
I mean, that's the interesting thing in social media world. You can see, and even in on the Instagram world, you might see somebody who has the flashy car, right? And they post it, and you're like, I don't know. Sometimes being a little knowing, hey, is this a real deal or not? Like the way I can tell the difference between a entrepreneur, which is somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur but isn't, right, and a real entrepreneur is they have some stories. They went in and they had some failures. So you have to be in relationship, ask the questions, right? Which is hard in our world. So asking questions, get on a phone. Like, I know in our world, we love these things called smartphones, right? These things. Do you know that you can use them to talk to other people, like voice? Like, seriously, you can do that. And a lot of times people are so afraid to actually call somebody and ask for that. So some is just relationship, like, and learning. Like for us, our community is other business owners. They're selling Amazon. They have an Etsy store or different things like us, and so we all are figuring out how to implement healthy systems, right? For us, not just for everybody else.
Okay. All right. So I would love for you to, I guess, tell us a little bit more about this STILL method that you've mentioned a couple of times as well, because that sounds interesting. So what does this method look like, and how will it help people get better with their finances?
I think it would help with so many things, right? Not even just finances, but in this whole process, again, reverse architect. Like, what kind of life do you want? What kind of business do you want? Are you just kind of sleepwalking through life and never asking, what are my goals, right? And you got to get clear on those kind of things. A lot of times, again, people don't even know what kind of business they want. They're just told that someone else said you should do a business, and they get in and they don't, right? And so you want to figure out what is the lifestyle, or they run a business and they forget that they need to actually go to the gym and exercise. Like, health is important, right? So the STILL method is a method we've thought about as we've been doing financial analysis for the past couple of years, and our own framework of my wife and I doing money meetings and saying, oh, there's two of us. Well, we've kind of figured this out. Oh, a lot of other people don't have us, each other. They need a community. So we thought of, well, what are we doing? All right, well, every time we do this money meeting, and we do one once a month, and we'll do a quarterly one where we just kind of dive in a little deeper on the goals. We, again, it's an acronym because we love acronyms. The first letter is set your sights, right? You can't know where you're going, right? If you're just kind of moving along, which a lot of people are, if you don't kind of have a destination, and here's the thing. As you have a destination and as you move towards that destination, things will change. There will be degree shifts. You might not actually end where you wanted to go. You might end off a few degrees off, right? Mm-hmm. Right. Because that's the way it goes. right? As you're moving. But if you don't have a destination, guess what you end up being? In the same spot. And then they wonder, how come I never got here? Well, you never moved. Right. So you have to set your sights, have a map to where you want to go. And the questions, as you are setting your sights, things may change, right? You have a family, you have a kid, other things outside the business change, right? So your questions may be the same, but the answers may change. And so having that time to reflect is really, really important, right? So that's the S.
Okay.
Then you have to track. This is the budgeting word that people hate, right? But tracking, this is why you go to the gym, right? This is why you, don't eat chocolate all day long, right? Because we know
that's a bad thing.
Eating chocolate, probably not all day long. So, but tracking, right? That's the thing. What you measure grows, kind of a thing. So track. Then you have to inspect it. Just because you tracked it doesn't mean anything is happening. You got to kind of inspect and see what's happening, right? Are the things I bought, that shiny object, is it actually working towards what I want, or did I need to jettison it because I don't need it anymore, right? Then the next is look for 1% adjustments. You don't just go and achieve this thing overnight. It's the 1% tweaks that get us there. It's building even the subscriber base or YouTube or the things that will get us better 1% over time, right? Because we look and we say, oh, look at that guy. They did this and that. You don't know what they did previously, right? So look for 1% adjustments and live deliberately. This is the other fact that I think a lot of people forget is being deliberate as an entrepreneur, not asleep at the wheel, is really, really important.
What does that mean then, live deliberately?
You got to actually be deliberate. You can't just say, oh, I want to do that one day. You got to be deliberate and put it on the calendar. Actually, count meetings or whatever those things are that are there. Having a gym routine. Yeah, you got to take action.
Right. Okay. All right. I see what you mean. So never ever, one day I'm going to do this one day and live in that kind of dreamland and never actually achieve it because you're not actually putting things in place to make it happen. We've got to make it happen. Right.
And that's really, you just circle back to the S again every month. And within our community, we just are, doing this together as a community. We'll actually take 15 minutes and say, okay, now we're going to work on the S and the T. And it's your business, but we might have questions and say, hey, have you guys experienced this? Or, we talked about this idea of lazy money and having money kind of just as an emergency fund. How do we think through that stuff? So we had that conversation just the other day.
Oh, yes, that's right. And so I really love this conversation because it's very simple. The method that you have is very simple. And basically you just keep going back round, right? If you lose your way, you just keep going back round. And as long as you keep track, which is a second thing that as people need to kind of implement, as long as you follow those steps, right, then there's no reason why you won't be successful.
And this isn't just about money, right? If you want a great relationship with your kids, right? Set your sights. What kind of parent do I want to be? All right. Tracking. Am I actually hanging out? Am I putting camping trips on the calendar, right? Inspecting. Am I looking at my phone when I'm supposed to be hanging out with them? Looking for 1% adjustments. Oh yeah, I looked at my phone again. How can I get better? Live deliberately. Let's schedule the next one. Right.
See, what I'm getting from you is we just got to be aware of what we're doing, what we're not doing, and what works and what isn't working, right?
Yeah.
Make those small changes, right? Meaning that we need to change our habits. If we find
Yep.
something that doesn't work, we need to change our habits.
And that's simple. And I seriously, I'm in. I feel like you're in their car when I'm walking, or with my wife, and I'm like, are we like that crazy? Like, isn't it just that simple? And I'm like, are people just sleeping at the wheel? Like, I don't understand it. Anyway, but it's really that simple, right?
And I think a lot of people make decisions on emotions, right? And so where you and your wife are very logical, right, and it makes complete sense, a lot of people make decisions on emotions, which means logic goes out of the window.
Well, and there is that too, right? So that's why the numbers, I know how the numbers work and I can do it. And there's certain things in my budget that's not logical. I want a bigger TV or whatever, and it's not mathematically the best move. However, we make margin for that to do those things. So that's okay too. Because guess what? None of us are logical in all senses or all the time. Even if you're Spock, right? There's some other emotions that fit in.
Right, definitely. So I would love to just kind of briefly talk a little bit more about, we spoke about business and scaling and keeping the eye on numbers and being aware about your actions. But what about if you are, a business owner that's making 6 or 7 figures, say, for example, and you're looking for other investments, right? Other ways to build on your money that you've got. What would be your advice on, other kind of revenue streams, other investments that people can make?
Yeah. So I'm not an investment advisor. I'm a safe money guy. So one of the things I think about is I'm really skilled in this thing called infinite banking. It's really good here in the US, using properly designed whole life insurance that I can use. And I still use the profit first method, except one of my banks, if you will, from the system is a policy, right? So I use the policy to invest in other things, right? And the way I think about it from a business owner perspective, and what Amazon does, is they own all the equipment and proprietary stuff within their industry. They don't just sell stuff. They have a Zoom meetings and Zoom kind of thing, right? So they have everything, right? So for me as a business owner, literally, I just used my life insurance policy because again, it's all about interest, thinking about like the long game. So I used my policy, cash value in my policy, to buy a building, to make an investment, right? I just increased my net worth because of buying a condo for my office, right? They call this the and asset. So then now, instead of paying rent to somebody else, I'm paying rent to me. Right. So then I'm expanding my business and my impact because I've created something that'll build in to that other thing. Like it's a non-correlated asset, but as a business goes, figuring out things that are going to amplify your cash flow and quality of business, right? So that's kind of where I think investing as a business owner, don't just divest from your business into somebody else's and say, well, I'm not getting a thing, a rate of return or whatever. Invest in yours, right?
Okay, I see. Now, I know, Brandon, at this point, people are thinking, oh my goodness, I need to know a little bit more. I need to learn a bit more. So how can they get in contact with you, connect with you, maybe even have a conversation with you for them to actually learn a little bit more what they need to do differently in their business?
Yeah, so we're just releasing a new website. It's going to be released here in the next week or so. It is USP.com. That'll be released shortly. So if you're catching this on the 7th, it's not there yet. But in the next few weeks, it is going to be out, Wealth Wisdom FP. There's also, if you want to be a part of the Still Method that we talk about, go to stillmethod.com, get the playbook. And of course, we have a community, and that's stillmethod.mn.co. And that's how you can go and be a part of this community. It's like $10 a month, but really it's talking about the financial aspects of our business. And, you're a business owner. We're not thinking about finance all the time, but it touches everything. If you don't have money and you're not keeping the money, it doesn't matter what's happening, right? And so we kind of look at ourselves as, what do you call those? What are those, like eating the right foods and all of those kind of people, but for money.
Right. Yes.
I forget what they're called. Why am I going blank? The nutritionist, like a nutritionist. Right. There you go.
Yes, the carbs, the protein, your veggies, all of that stuff. But looking at it in the finance and money kind of side of it.
Yeah, we all know what not to do. I mean, like literally, eating chocolate all day, probably not the best idea, right?
Well, it's a lovely idea, but maybe not a good idea if you're actually trying to get a little bit healthier, right? And so we're going to look at money that way too. That's what I'm getting from you. So you might want to buy the TV, buy the car, buy the big house, go on the holidays, but pouring all of that money into all those things isn't going to make you money.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing about Profit First, going back to that, is I get a profit distribution every quarter. And I also have in my budget and in my system with YNAB, I have mad money. This is mad money that I can just use for whatever I want, And so, hey, that's okay. I can go spend it on a trip if I want, but it is allocated to that. And it's, as I'm successful, the profit distribution will show up. My mad money is going to grow.
Right. Nice. Okay. Well, guys, just to let you know, all the links that Brandon has mentioned already will be in the show notes. So if you've missed anything, please go down and look at the show notes. Click on there, get his download. Oh my goodness, you don't want to miss out on that. Join his community. You won't regret it. And do also go and connect with him, right? If you want to learn more from him, build a bigger, better business, go and connect with Brandon. Brandon, oh my goodness, as per usual, so many golden nuggets. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Kay. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening to the Uncensored Society podcast at www.uncensoredsocietypodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can get this and every other episode that's coming out. We have lots of great stuff coming, so make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss it. And thank you in advance for all the reviews and comments. I appreciate it so much, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.